This video was brought to you by Ling app. What do Sun Yat-sen, a revolutionary, Ieoh Ming Pei, an architect, and Jackie Chan, the Jackie Chan, have in common? They speak the same language, which is Chinese, correct. But which Chinese? Because there are many varieties of Chinese or many Chinese languages. The variety we're going to see today has a strong presence in modern Chinese culture and is spoken not only in China but all over the world. Nei ho, my name is Julie and welcome to the Cantonese language. Cantonese or Guangdonghua, literally the language of Guangdong, is spoken in, you guessed it, Guangdong province of China and in Hong Kong and Macau, as well as in overseas Chinese communities all over the world. There are around 75 million native speakers of Cantonese, 55 million in China and 20 million in the diaspora. It is one of the main varieties of Chinese in Chinatowns all over the world. Cantonese belongs to a larger Yue dialect group with more or less mutually intelligible dialects spoken in Guangdong and Guangxi provinces. The terms Cantonese and Yue are often used interchangeably, but Cantonese is actually more like a prestige dialect of Yue. The total number of speakers of all Yue dialects, including Cantonese, is 86 million. Cantonese doesn't have an official status. In mainland China, the official language is Putonghua, Standard Chinese based on the Mandarin variety. In Hong Kong and Macau, the official language, aside from English in Hong Kong and Portuguese in Macau, is Chinese. They cunningly don't specify which Chinese, or they refer to the standard written Chinese, but don't specify which spoken language is official. Here it is necessary to explain the difference between the written and spoken Chinese, and I'll do it, but later. De facto, in Hong Kong and Macau, Cantonese is the language of media, government, business and education. In Guangdong, though, all education is conducted in Mandarin. For that reason, and because of migration from other regions of China, Cantonese is native for only half of population of Guangzhou, the capital of Guangdong. Cantonese people are very proud of their language. In 2014, a page on the Hong Kong's Education Bureau's website said that Cantonese is a Chinese dialect not considered an official language. The statement caused a backlash, so they swiftly removed it and apologized for any misunderstanding. In 2010, in Guangzhou, a protest erupted when it was proposed to switch primetime TV programs from Cantonese to Mandarin. As you can see, Cantonese is very important for its native speakers. How did Cantonese develop? How different it is from Mandarin, and how did it become such an integral part of Cantonese people's identity? Let's find out in the next sections. First things first, Cantonese, along with other Chinese languages, belongs to the Sino-Tibetan language family. The family originated around the Yellow River Basin some 6,000 years ago. Nowadays, it is the second largest language family by speaker number. The first is Indo-European. And apart from Chinese languages, it also includes languages like Tibetan and Burmese. Since the branches divided quite a while ago, we can only see commonalities in some basic vocabulary between Chinese, Tibetan and Burmese. All modern Chinese languages are descended from the Old Chinese language, which corresponds to the period between 1280 BC, the date of the oldest inscriptions in Proto-Chinese characters, to the unification of China by the Qin dynasty in 221 BC. 1,000 years is a very long period, I know, and the language changed a lot throughout these years, obviously, but our knowledge about it is limited. But it seems like the language still wasn't tonal. With the conquest of Qin and then Han dynasties, the speakers of this old Chinese language started spreading around the area, and with that spreading their language, a tendency that would last for centuries. In the Middle Chinese period, between 4th and 12th centuries AD, the Chinese language started to get more similar to its modern forms. It developed tones and got its monosyllabic structure. Almost all modern Chinese varieties stem from Middle Chinese, except from the Min varieties, which seem to have split even earlier than that. In ancient times, the southeastern areas of China, where Cantonese is currently spoken, were inhabited by non-Chinese speakers, the so-called Yue people. If you notice, the name remained, but now it refers to a group of Cantonese-related dialects. Originally, the Yue people didn't speak a Sinitic language. We don't know if they were a unified people group or not. Maybe they spoke some Austroasiatic, Kra-Dai, or Hmong-Mien languages. At some point, they became Proto-Viet states, since even the name Vietnam comes from Nan-Yue or South Yue, Yue being the Chinese reading of Viet. In contrast with the ancient Chinese people who had a wet-based culture, their culture was rice-based. They had tattoos and a developed seafaring tradition. During Qin and Han dynasties, these areas became included in the Chinese Empire, but were still inhabited by these Proto-Vietic people. However, with the turmoils that were happening throughout the Chinese history, more and more migrants were arriving from the north, displacing or assimilating local population. The first large migration wave happened with the fall of the Han Dynasty around the end of the 2nd AD, with people fleeing the madness of the Yellow Turban Rebellion. The same thing then happened over and over again. For example, in the 8th century, as a result of An Lushan Rebellion in the north, the population of Guangzhou Prefecture increased by 75% suddenly. Even in the 20th century, when fleeing from unrest or pure insanity like the Cultural Revolution, where did people go? To Hong Kong, to a safe haven that this area seems to have always been. Today, people continue migrating there in search of economical opportunities. Nowadays, Guangdong is the most populous province of China. During Song Dynasty, which ruled over southern China, Guangzhou became a cultural center, with Cantonese emerging as a prestige language. This is when the Cantonese opera developed. It is an art form that combines music, singing, martial arts, acrobatics, and acting. It is traditionally performed in Cantonese to this day and is considered intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO. Guangzhou was always the main commercial port of the Chinese Empire, and Cantonese was the variety that foreigners interacted with most. During the 20th century, when under the British rulership Hong Kong was a tiny island of capitalism in the sea of communism, Cantonese had a period of massive cultural development. Hong Kong grew economically, as did its entertainment industry, with Hong Kong cinema and Cantopop. After the reunification with China, Cantonese movies and music flooded the Chinese market. Cantonese was trendy and cool, not only in China, but all over Asia. Now it's different. China is not the same anymore. It's not communist anymore. It's communist. Hong Kong now is not the most developed and modern city in China, and places like Shanghai or even Shenzhen, just across the border from Hong Kong, have nothing less. Movie and music industry in Mandarin has grown as well, and the government is pushing everyone to be proficient in Mandarin. As a result, smaller languages might become less used and gradually die out. Though it's hard to call Cantonese small. It's small by China's standards, but it's still some 80 million native speakers. So it is unlikely to die anytime soon. Outside China, Cantonese may be the only Chinese variety that is extensively taught alongside Mandarin. Hong Kong still remains one of the main financial hubs in the world, so if you want to do business in Hong Kong, you must learn Cantonese. One place where you can do it is Ling App. Ling App provides an easy path to hard languages, with over 60 languages to choose from. The lessons train you on all aspects of the language: reading, listening, speaking, and grammar. The lessons have a variety of tasks. They feel like a game, but at the same time challenging. I especially like that it gives you dialogue examples from the first lesson.
你呢？我好好，多謝。
Like that, you are immersed into the language from day one. Another great thing is that your source language doesn't have to be English. You can pick any of the Ling's languages to learn from. You can get a monthly subscription if you don't want to commit for too long, or you can get a yearly subscription with a discount. Try a 7-day free trial at the link below and start learning almost any language you can think of. Now let's come back to this thing I mentioned in the beginning of the video, about differences between written and spoken Chinese. You see, in Cantonese, written and spoken Chinese are not the same. Standard written Chinese is the same for all Chinese languages, and it is basically written Mandarin. But in Hong Kong, it's written with traditional characters, while mainland China uses simplified character. Cantonese is considered a spoken language and doesn't have an official written standard. At the same time, the written standard has developed by itself, and when people communicate informally, for example by texting, they write in this colloquial Cantonese. But it's used not only in colloquial contexts. There is a large corpus of literary texts in Cantonese, as well as a substantial Wikipedia. The standard Chinese is used more for official communication and is written only. Since the Chinese writing system is logographic, it represents meaning, not sounds, we need to use a transliteration system to illustrate pronunciation. There is no official transliteration for Cantonese, but different transliteration systems exist. The most widespread is possibly Ieoh Ming, so this is what we're going to use. There are 19 consonant sounds in Cantonese. There are 5 pairs of aspirated, meaning pronounced with a puff of air, and unaspirated consonants like in p, or qu. Also notice how in Ieoh Ming the unaspirated, unvoiced sounds are written as voiced. Like for example, this is written as dim, but pronounced as theme. The letter C in Ieoh Ming corresponds to the aspirated ц, as in 10,000, and Z is the unaspirated Z, as in 10 rug. Other consonants in Cantonese are quite straightforward. Another interesting thing is that this consonant m and this consonant n can work as separate words, all by themselves. Cantonese is rich in vowels, with 11 vowel sounds, some long, some short, and many more diphthongs that can form from these vowels. There are the standard a, e, I, o, u sounds, but also more interesting sounds like u as in su, book, e as in hang, gong, Hong Kong, or u as in sun, letter. You may be wondering for some time now, what the hell are those numbers at the end of the words? Well, you probably guessed it, these are the tones. Contrary to Mandarin, which has 4 tones, Cantonese has 6, and the tones are also different. Number 1 is the high tone, C. 2 is medium rising tone, C. It goes from mid to high pitch, like a question intonation. 3 is medium tone, C. Just flat in the middle. 4 is low falling tone, C. Goes from low to complete rock bottom. 5 is low rising, same as tone 3, but you start at the bottom and end in the middle, C. And finally, 6 is just low tone, C. And now all together, C, 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 C. You could even sometimes read that Cantonese has 9 tones. This is what it actually means. There are 3 final consonants, p, t, k, that make a syllable short. Cut it in the middle. So these additional 3 tones are simply high, mid, and low tones, but cut short with these consonants, like in sig, sig, sig. Also notice that the last consonant is not actually pronounced, but it just abruptly stops the vowel. As we mentioned before, Cantonese is a monosyllabic language with a limited amount of possible sound combination. That's why the development of tones was a necessity to differentiate between words. Even then, there are around 1,760 possible syllables in total, for more than 10,000 characters, so there are on average 6 characters for each syllable. And if it wasn't enough, in addition to the standard Chinese characters, there is over 1,000 extra characters created specifically for Cantonese. A lot of them represent some pretty basic things like the pronoun he, she, it, or some grammatical particles, so a Mandarin speaker wouldn't be able to understand a Cantonese text. If you notice, many of these characters have a square in the left part. This square is actually the character meaning mouth, and here it's added as a radical to an existing character with an existing pronunciation to mean that the resulting character phonetically sounds the same as the original character, but the meaning has nothing to do with it. This combining and stacking up of radicals is used to form new words too. For example, the character for elevator is composed of radicals meaning machine and standing, so standing machine, and pronounced lip from English lift. When adapting words from English, Cantonese actually prefers just to find characters that sound like the English equivalent, like pa-si for bus or tik-si for taxi. But well, enough of me butchering Cantonese tones. Let's finally listen to the native speakers.
喺香港長大，同埋我自己由小學、中學 去到大學都係用粵語㗎嘛，咁始終我未有接受過用普通話學中文嘅過程，可能我喺經驗上面啦，可能個方式上面啦，都未必會咁，如果要同粵語去比較，我未必會咁完善。
咁早期嘅粵語流行曲同一啲粵劇咧嘅關係好密切嘅，咁同有啲係一啲所謂叫小曲啦，一個粵劇比較長裏邊嘅其中一段，我哋後來所講嘅粵語流行曲係好類似咯。咁所以變咗我諗一路就會喺一個文學嘅角度去賞識，都會好重視嘅歌詞咯。所以一般嚟講喺流行音樂研究西方嘅就比較少係好重視歌詞嘅。
今次我就唔係好見到咯，咁亦都冇團體搞啦，係完全唔同晒兩個世界嚟㗎啦。就寫咗喺基本法嘅。個問題就係你點樣去做，點樣去令到市民支持，所以你要傾，但係佢哋聲大，其他人冇聲。
How does Cantonese sound to you? Similar to any other language you know? To me, because it sounds like sh or r, it seems quite different from Mandarin. And as always, here I'm going to say that there is an amazing Patreon page where you can support this channel and even have the privilege to vote for the next language. And now, on to the grammar. If you ever decide to learn Cantonese, or any of the Chinese languages for that matter, you'll be happy to know that the grammar is very simple. Nothing conjugates, no suffixes or prefixes, no crazy grammar, thank you. Just say the words in the correct order and you're good to go. The basic order is subject, verb, object. And I'm not going to read aloud the sentences in Cantonese, enough of me butchering Cantonese. So let's get back to the sentence. Subject, verb, object, I drink beer. And if you want to put it, for example, in the future, tomorrow I drink beer. The word order is fixed and doesn't change, even in a question. Here's the sentence. You are America person. You are American. To ask, where are you from? Just put where instead of the country, in this case America. You are where person. For a yes/no question, you actually repeat the verb with particle not. He, go, not go, America, literally. Cantonese uses different particles to connect words or to add nuance to the meaning. For example, article zo indicates a completed action and particle gan indicates an ongoing action. Sik zo, eating is completed, like a perfect tense, while sik gan, in the process of eating, like a continuous tense. There is also a possessive particle that is used to connect noun and adjective or to show possession. Red, possessive particle, rose. There is also a whole load of particles that go at the end of a phrase which add emphasis or nuance. And now let's see a longer sentence. Literally, this, classifier for book, I, read, understand, affirmation particle. Alright, many things are happening here. First of all, ni bunsu, this book, is the topic, so it's in the beginning. It's like if we said, about this book, I have read it. Next, bun, before the noun book, is a classifier for book type objects, like magazines, newspapers. In Cantonese, classifier should precede an object, and that corresponds to the shape or nature of the object. Then, read, understand. This is a Cantonese way of bumping verbs together. In English, we would say, I read the book and understood it, but in Cantonese, it is expressed just with this compound verb, essentially. And finally, la is an affirmative particle, so the sentence is probably an answer to a question, have you read this book? Or something. And just one last phrase. How do you say, how are you, in Cantonese? There are many ways, but one of them is sik so, literally, have you eaten yet? Food is a huge thing in Cantonese culture. Dim sum, wonton, chow mein, and oh my god, it's lunchtime soon. All of these are part of the beautiful, amazing Cantonese cuisine. Even the word ketchup probably stems from Cantonese ketchup, literally meaning tomato sauce in Cantonese, but this could also be from Hokkien, it's not sure. Don't take my word for it. But there is one thing I know for sure. If in a restaurant in London's Chinatown you speak to the staff in Cantonese, they are going to provide you an extra amazing service. True story. Talk to them in Mandarin and they will actually be unhappy, so to say. Cantonese opens new doors, opens people's hearts So if you ever travel to Guangdong or Hong Kong, make an effort, learn some Cantonese, it will pay off. Thank you so much for watching and see you in our next exploration.